Well, my editing skills are crap, but can the same thing be said about Batman Assault on Arkham? Stick around and find out. Bow, 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 now, bow, bow. I don't know, what would be a good theme song for the for the Suicide Squad, because that's what this movie's about. Hi, I'm Peter Franson from ChristianGeekCentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions, here with my uncut review of Batman Arkham, or Assault on Arkham, sorry. All right, the IMDb synopsis for this movie says, based on the hit video game series, Batman must find a bomb planted by the Joker while dealing with a mysterious team of villains called the Suicide Squad. No, that's totally wrong. I mean, it's not totally wrong, but this is not a Batman movie, and that's what is so exciting and refreshing about this. Yes, they think that, you know, all we care about is Batman and Superman, so they got to put Batman really big on the front of the Blu-ray. But this is a Suicide Squad movie. Batman is definitely a part of it, but he's like a background character. If you're not familiar with the Suicide Squad, it's this concept in the DC comic book universe where the U.S. government, headed by a special supervisor named Amanda Waller, basically they cut the sentence time off of villains that are in jail, or I think they just use the ones that are in jail, not the ones that are typically, well, I think sometimes the ones that are a little bit more stable or controllable in Arkham. But they give them a deal of, okay, we'll cut time from your sentence if you go and do these crazy Black Ops suicide missions that you're probably going to die doing. But if you survive, you'll get such and such years cut off of your sentence. And so it's this great way to get these villains together on a team, kind of doing stuff that's kind of good, but maybe not so good, you know, for the U.S. government, and seeing these villains play off of each other. And what's exciting about a concept like this is, with a superhero story, you know that the superheroes have certain limits. They're going to, you know, not kill people, or they're going to not, you know, whatever. But you just kind of sense those lines are in there. And when I was listening to the commentary for this movie, the creative team even recognized that there's this layer of boredom that you have to fight through that's just kind of built into superhero stories and movies like this. But when you take that away, when you take away those lines in the sand, and you just kind of have these characters that who knows what they're going to do, then you can really do some crazy stuff. You can keep your audience guessing the whole time what the crap is going to happen next. And this movie was just, it was a lot of fun. Let's talk briefly about the story, the script, the pacing, that kind of stuff. This is a character-driven movie. It's not. I mean, it's as far as like the plot structure, it's a bit of a heist movie. You know, they got to plan this break-in to Arkham Asylum. Amanda Waller is sending the team in to assassinate the Riddler, and the reasons are a bit of a mystery for most of the movie. And meanwhile, Batman's got some other stuff that he's dealing with that eventually kind of, that plot line syncs up with what's going on with the Suicide Squad. But you've got these great kind of B-C list villains. You've got Harley Quinn, who I was sold on as a character. I've never been a fan of Harley Quinn, but she won me over as a character in this movie. You've got Deadshot, who's like this great expert assassin marksman. You've got King Shark. He's kind of a C-lister. You've got Killer Frost, Black Spider, and I want to say like Captain Boomerang, and maybe one or two others that I'm kind of forgetting. But I mean, they don't feel like C-listers when you're watching this movie. I thought for sure this was written by Gail Simone. If you're a comic book fan, then you might recognize that name. Gail Simone wrote The Sinister Six, which was kind of a revival of the concept of the Suicide Squad, except without the government involved. But it was a supervillain team on the run, just kind of doing their own thing. And if you liked Gail Simone's Sinister Six, you should definitely check this movie out. I thought for sure it was written by Gail Simone, because the dialogue, the punchlines, every character kind of in these really economic moments is given their chance to shine over and over and over again. And you're seeing how different these characters are, what they're motivated by. You're seeing them bounce off of each other, and sometimes really bounce off of each other. And it's just a ton of fun. There's darker senses of humor in this movie. So if you're like me and you like kind of like twisted humor every now and then, this movie will deliver on that. It's definitely violent. It's possibly the most violent of the DC animated movies that I've seen so far. I mean, it really goes to some whoa, like some somewhat shocking places. But just because it's dark and violent and gritty and stuff, that doesn't take away from the fun at all. And I think that's something that's kind of missing, maybe dare I say, from the Marvel movies, is they're fun, but they don't bring in maybe some of the grittiness that I would like as well. I want to have my cake and eat it too. I want the serious, grounded, gritty stuff at times, and sometimes the really shocking violence. But I also want it to be fun at the same time. You think those two are incompatible? Not so in Batman: Assault on Arkham. So the characters are a lot of fun. There's great action, great fight choreography. Like I said, the dialogue is great. Let me talk about the actors a little bit. We got Kevin Conroy. You recognize this guy. He's been the voice for Batman in the animated series all through the 90s. He's kind of a fan favorite. And I was starting to get sick of him a little bit because his voice was aging, and just kind of the way he was doing his performance as Batman in one of the Batman Superman movies. I think it was the Apocalypse movie. He started to, I felt like his age was showing a little bit. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I feel that beholden to Kevin Conroy as Batman anymore. But he did something. I don't know if he was like lubing up, drinking a lot of water or something, but his voice had a youthfulness to it. It sounded like that Batman of the 90s that I remember. It was really great. Just kind of returned to the prime sound that I used to expect from Kevin Conroy. So that was great. You got Neil McDonough, who I'm probably butchering his name, but you would recognize him. He's a familiar face. He was in Saving Private Ryan. He was the guy with the handlebar mustache in the first Captain America movie. You know that guy. You've seen him everywhere. And he plays Deadshot. I didn't even recognize his voice, but Deadshot is such a great character, and he did a great job. Troy Baker, who does every voice in video game history, plays the Joker in here, and his Mark Hamill impression is unfreaking canny. I mean, it's nuts. It's nuts. I mean, I had to ask myself for the first couple lines that I heard the Joker speak. I was like, boy, I thought Mark Hamill was done with this. Oh no, I'll bet this is the guy that they got to replace him, who at the time I couldn't remember that it was Troy Baker, but I knew that they got like a rockin' guy to replace him who really could capture that Mark Hamill thing. So I mean, like if you went in and you didn't know that Mark Hamill has retired from that role, I think you would just go right along with his performance. It is wonderful, classic animated Joker voice that we've come to expect from years and years of watching the animated series and hearing Mark Hamill do such a brilliant job with that character. CCH Pounder, that's a name you probably for sure don't recognize. But she does the voice of Amanda Waller. She did the voice of Amanda Waller in the animated series, and they put a shout out. The commentary, the one of the creative team said, "Hey, this is just a shout out for the people making the live action movies for DC these days. You should hire CCH Pounder to play Amanda Waller when it comes time to represent her in the movies." Now, yes, she was represented by another actress. I can't remember her name in the Green Lantern movie, but I don't think with the new DC movies they're at all considering that canon. So as long as they're going to recast that role, yeah, I think go with CCH Pounder, because I think not only is her voice, but if you've seen her, I've seen her on like TV dramas and stuff like that, and she would physically, she would be great for it, for her appearance and just kind of like the intensity that she can bring as an actress. Oh man, I would love to see her as Amanda Waller in a live action movie, and it's great to hear her voice again doing that role that she had just so classically created. I mean, she didn't create Amanda Waller, but I mean her interpretation of the source material in the DC animated universe of the 90s and 2000s was fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about visuals. Okay, this is an animated movie, cell animated, not CG, although there is some CG brought in to kind of enhance some things here and there. But the fight choreography is really great, really creative and fast and furious, and I'm like looking around like, whoa, ah. Oh, I mean, it's just great to watch some of the combat in this movie. Whenever Batman comes into the scene, it just really amps it up. But it's great even the rest of the time. The one criticism I would have visually is that every once in a while the art lines are a little bit thick and a little bit... Because what they'll do is they'll create the scene and then they'll zoom in a little bit. And so it loses, when you zoom in on cell animation, it loses some of that definition because they're not creating new art as they zoom in. They're just zooming in on this art resource that they've already created for maybe a wider shot, but when they zoom in, it loses it loses some of that definition, some of that clean look, and it gets a little the black lines get a little bit thick, and it just kind of looks a little bit sloppy. But that doesn't happen very often. I could probably count on one hand the times where I thought, oh, that doesn't look great. The rest of the time, the animation, the art looks great. It's the color scheme and just kind of the interpretations of how they designed the physicality of the characters, their costumes and stuff. Now, this is based on the universe of the Batman Arkham Asylum games, Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, Arkham Origins, all that stuff. And I haven't played a single one of those games because I suck at them. But watching this movie, you don't need to know anything about those games, anything about that universe. It could just be, this kind of what if self-contained Batman story that mostly fits in with the rest of the DC universe. In fact, I can't help but wonder, if I was familiar with the games, if I would be bringing baggage into this movie experience that would kind of hurt it somehow. I had a great experience, and I know jack about the Arkham series of games. The music and sound effects in this movie, well, the sound effects are great. I'm not going to talk about those though, but the musical choices are fantastic. They got like some rock every now and then that's kind of like, yeah, we are bad mother truckers, and we're coming out and we're doing our slow motion walk down the hall, and because we just did something awesome, we're all suited up now, and so they use the music to help create these moments that you felt and that you've seen and that you've experienced in classic movies like this. I think of heist movies like Ocean's 11, or these kinds of or I don't want to say the Expendables. I'm not a huge fan of the Expendables, but that kind of movie where it's this ensemble team that's coming together to carry out a plan, so it's definitely that kind of thing, and they create a lot of those moments with the music. They also do some interesting thing with the editing. They'll have like these little a sliced up screen that has multiple close-ups on the different characters. This movie just knows how to have fun in the way that it tells the story. It's still lots of dark, violent stuff going on, but the way the story is told is very fun a lot of the time. Now, in terms of relevance, things that might stimulate worthwhile thought or conversation or contemplation, I don't think there's really much going on in this movie that's going to do that. You might say, boy, the back of the Blu-ray says, get ready to root for the villains or the bad guys or whatever. And you might ask yourself, well, boy, should we ever root for these bad guys, but then that kind of demands the question to be asked, what is a bad guy? We don't want to root for evil itself. We don't want to root for what is wrong itself. But how do you define bad guy? And especially when these guys, even though they're screwed up themselves and they've done horrible things and they're going to keep doing horrible things, they are on a mission to do horrible things to people that are possibly more horrible than them, so there is a sense in which you can get along with, go along with them, and they also take pains, especially with Deathstroke, to make him a little bit relatable. They kind of bring in the fact that he's got this daughter that he cares about, that he's protecting, and so you get this, especially Deadshot, and he's kind of the centerpiece of the ensemble cast, and so he really, I think, helps to enable us to root for the villains. And the other villains, you start feeling, like you can side with them a little bit just because they're funny, and you don't take them too seriously. It's a lot of fun. It's rated PG-13 for violence, sexual content, and language. Let's see, I'm going to give this one a 9.0 out of 10. This is a fantastic movie. Now, keep in mind, I'm a fan of DC Comics. If you're not a fan of DC Comics, then maybe that would be for you more like an 8 or an 8.5, a good experience, but not one that you like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I saw that right away, But if you're a fan of the DC Universe and you're familiar with lots of the different characters in the DC Universe, even if you're not familiar with all of them, I wasn't really familiar at all with King Shark, but most of the others I'd at least heard of and maybe had seen them featured in a story, once before. But if you have, that level of knowledge or even a little less knowledge than that of the DC Universe, but you're just a fan of the DC Universe, I think this is a must buy for you. A must buy. You don't have to run out and get it today, but man, if you wait, you might feel like, oh, my life could have been better for the last 2 months if I would have bought this. No. But it's a great experience. I highly recommend. Relevance, they're not trying for anything, and they're not bringing anything that's really worthwhile in terms of thought or contemplation, in my opinion. So I'm going to give them a 5.5 out of 10 in that regard. Please do like, share, and subscribe. That would help me out and, help get the word out about these videos and help encourage me to make some more. Also, please leave your comments below about which what you liked or what you'd like to see, except for better editing. That's kind of the shtick on these videos. I don't think I'm going to be doing any any editing on them. But boom, for info about our scoring system and tons of other content and community, visit ChristianGeekCentral.com. I hope you'll join us there soon as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. Boom!